Hello neighbors, I'm Randall Franks, Officer Randy from TV's In the Heat of the Night, and also Bluegrass artist. I'm here today to talk to you about something that happened 40 years ago. It changed my life. The gentleman behind me in this picture, Bill Monroe, had taken me under his wing in 1983 and began mentoring me as a fiddle player and a band leader. It allowed me to start appearing with the Bluegrass boys the next spring. Well, in October of 1984, another gentleman who I greatly admire. As you can see, I have a lot of Kenny Baker albums that I used to play and move the needle back on to learn the licks that Kenny was playing. Well, Kenny, for over 2 decades, was the Bluegrass boy fiddle player. And in October, he decided it was time for him to move on, which opened up a position in the Bluegrass boys that thankfully Bill allowed me to fill. And it changed my life. Now in 2006, I sat down with Kenny over the phone and did an interview for my syndicated newspaper column, Southern Style. It's still running in papers around the South and the Midwest, but here's one of the publications that the column ran in back in 2006, and it was such a pleasure to sit down with Kenny and hear about what he wanted to talk about, and that's what it was. We talked a little about music and a little about music people, but mainly we talked about Kenny's life, and I enjoyed that time. Kenny was an outstanding fiddle player. What else can be said? His talents, his recordings, his performances will go on in perpetuity, largely because of his more than 2 decades of association with the father of bluegrass music, Bill Monroe. And I certainly want to thank him for the influence that he had upon me. And I hope that you might enjoy, as 2 bluegrass boys just talk about what Kenny wants to talk about. Now, before I go, there are a number of pictures that you'll see as the audio interview goes along. There's a photo of myself and Kenny taken by Michelle Putnam in there. There's some photos from Ron Eldridge taken back in the early 1970s at the festivals. I believe it was Bean Blossom. And then there's some photographs that come from Kenny's family collection that came from his son, Ken Baker. So I want to thank them. And I also want to thank Ron. Ron gave me, I'm going to show you something. I want you to see, this is a Kenny Baker t-shirt right here. And you can see it's pretty nice looking. And I want to thank Ron for doing that and honoring the memory and the legacy of Kenny Baker. Now, here's Kenny Baker in his own words with Randall Franks from 2006.
You know, obviously everybody considers you the premier fiddler of all the folks who have really given bluegrass its sound, or if they look to you as being the person who sort of set the standard. What do you think sets fiddlers apart in our field? Do you think it's the fingering or the bowing or how they go about playing the tune? Or?
Well, I'll tell you. My dad played fiddle. I never saw my dad play a show tune. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And when he played, his blowing was different from any person I ever saw. You know, my first instrument was guitar. And I wanted to play fiddle so bad, I had to steal my daddy's fiddle out when he'd be at work. And he got after me about it. I was grabbing the bow up way high above the frog, see?
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'd get that fiddle, if it was 3 minutes I'd play it, or a half hour, or 2 hours, put it back in the case, and me knowing he wouldn't know that I had to hold that fiddle.
Right.
I used to get it, go upstairs, crawl out on the back of the house, through a window, and sit on the roof now, and try to play that fiddle.
So you were literally the fiddler on the roof.
Well, you might say that, but that's the only place I could hide, you know. And one thing I did learn was to put a mute on the fiddle where it wasn't too loud.
Right.
And one evening, my dad come in, and I'd put that fiddle back in that case, and he'd been on me 4 or 5 times. He knew every time I'd move that fiddle. He opened that case and looked, got the bow out, and he showed me the stains where I was holding that bow way up. He said, now look, I'm going to show you something here. If you've got to do this, he grabbed that bow, held it up to me, and he said, every bit of this hair in this bow is made to be used, and what you're doing, you're damaging my bow every time you grab it up in the middle. And he showed me, and sure enough, you could see stains where I would sit out there, and regardless of how hot it was, I didn't pay that weather no mind, and maybe I might did
Swiddle it.
a little bit on it, but it was, you could tell.
And it was turning the horsehair and making it so it'd be a loose spot. When he'd go across it, he could tell that you'd sweated on it.
Yeah. So he told me, he said, if you have to do this now, don't let me catch you grabbing my bow up like you have been. And he showed me how to hold that bow. And really, I don't hold the bow like a lot of people. My thumb is under that frog, you know.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was around you, how you held your bow, and I noticed it was different like that.
And then, as I got further along, of course, I kept playing guitar, too. And when I went to the military, in the Navy, they had a group going on, and by that time, I'd learned to play 3 or 4 or 5 hoedowns, you know, pretty good. Or I knew how they went. I could get close to them.
What kind of songs were those, or tunes were those?
Oh, it's just stuff like Old Ragtime Annie and just dance numbers. My dad played for a lot of square dances. He never considered himself a professional fiddler.
Right.
But in those days, there wasn't many professionals around. You know?
Yeah, sure.
And as a matter of fact, I was supposed to. I put a shipping commission down in Orange, Texas. As a destroyer escort. And we went to Bermuda for a break-in cruise. And I had a guitar aboard ship. And I was learning to be what they called a water tender, you know. And so my work consisted right down in the boiler room. When I'd stand watch, I'd had to be right down in that boiler room. And you know, in the South Pacific, once I got into it, that was kind of a little warm down there. I don't care what kind of cooling process they had, but you'd still get pretty warm down in the engine room.
Yeah.
So we went into Hollandia, New Guinea. They gave us a beach party there. And they had beer. They give every man a 6-pack of beer, and all we had. And they had these USO troops in there. I call them troops, you know. And they'd bring movie stars in and what have you, and they do show for the military.
Right.
And we got over there on beach, and the show was going on, and this guy doing the MC work, he called out if there was any of the military would want to come up and play a number. Well, hell, I didn't open my mouth, buddy. But the boys aboard ship, one of them raised his hand up and he said, "We've got a guitar player here. You've got to come up. You've got to let him come up there and play one." Well, I didn't have no guitar on the beach. And they just practically dug me up to that stage. And I told the MC, I said, "Look, I don't have my guitar with me. That makes no difference. We've got a guitar here right for you." Well, of all things, the way I was learning to play guitar, I learned to play guitar from an old peanut vendor there at home.
Uh-huh.
He was a black man, and you know he'd tune his guitar in open G tuning. And now that's the way I learned to play guitar.
Huh.
So, hell, I went out there and I thought, well, just to satisfy him, I grabbed that guitar and it being awkward and everything, and I told that guy, I said, "Now look, I'm going to have to retune this guitar if I play." And he said, "Just don't damage the guitar. I don't care what you do it, but don't break no strings and all that." I said, "Well, if one breaks, I'll be in trouble, but I'm going to tune it if I stay up here." So I retuned that instrument. I went out and I played one number, hoping that'd be enough, you know. And I played it, I guess, for 2 minutes or something like that. I shut down on it, trying to hand the man guitar and those people, and even him himself. He said, no, you've got to play another. I played 5 numbers in a row there. That guitar cross-tuned, you know. And so they finally let me get off, and this commander there asked me what ship I was from, and I told him. And they said, "Would you be interested in joining this group here?" I said, "Well, I thought he was just trying to make me feel good." I said, "Well, sure." I went back aboard ship that evening, and I hadn't been on board ship, I'll say an hour. So here comes bosun mate up in our quarters, paging me. He said, "Get your gear, you're moving out." Now this took place in Hollandia, New Guinea.
Hollandia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And every time that troop would go and play, see, I'd go with them. And I'd have to play 3, 4, 5 numbers on the guitar. And we went to G1 Samar, I guess it was. And
How did you say that again for me, Kenny?
G1
G1
Samar, yeah.
Samara. Okay.
And they had a lot of military there, you know, and such as they had a bunch of Red Cross nurses, and I'll call them WAC nurses and the Navy nurses and things there. So this commander, he says to me, he said, "Kenny, you been from Kentucky. You know anything about square dance music? They're trying to set up a square dance for the nurses here."
Right.
I said, "Well, my dad used to play square dances. And I looked at him. I said, look, you've got to have a fiddle to play, play a square dance, you know.
Yeah.
He said, well, I realize that. He said, I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky. He said, we've got a fiddle here. Can you play one? So I said, well, if it's a fiddle, I might play it, but if it's a violin, let's forget it. And he looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, well, classical setup is so much different. He said, well, can you set it up to play it? I said, yeah, but I'll have to damage the bridge on that violin. The way I told him, he said, well, bridges can be got, so go ahead and fix it up, and we'll try this square dance. He said, I want to hear you playing fiddle anyway.
Right.
So, this square dance come up, and my God, I played, I played Wartime Annie. I did that. And I run out of numbers to play. Hell, they danced for 40 minutes. And I had them in the wind pretty good, you know. And my God, I just run out of tunes to play. You get it so monotonous,
Yeah.
you'll get tired of it. So I have to think about Rubber Dolly. Now imagine playing that tune. That square dance pace.
My goodness, yeah.
But I did it. And I'd have to play them same numbers every time when we'd do them dances. And we done several of them during the period of time I stayed with them.
Yeah. I remember, you know, to me, and I admire those that could play those square dances. You know, the few times in my fiddling career that I've had the unfortunate opportunity to play for a dance, just it takes a tremendous amount of stamina to be able to play and hold the tempo for those dancers for such a long, because they don't just dance for a few minutes. They
That's right.
20 minutes might be one square dance, then you get into it. Another one, and boy, I don't remember my bowing arm being as tired than following one of those square dances.
Well, yeah, man, it'll wear you out.
Yeah. So I really admire, and you know, that told me a lot about the stamina of, like, well, my great-granddad played for square dances, and like your father, I admire their ability to do that.
Yes, sir.
It just took a lot of stamina.
And tell you the truth, that's where my bowing came from, a lot of that square dance stuff. And mind you, I'd never played fiddle for a square dance before I went to service.
What time frame were you in the service, Kenny?
Beg your pardon?
What years were you in the service?
I went in March 3rd, 1943.
And stayed in, I assume, 2 or 3 years, or?
Yeah, I was discharged in early 46, I believe is what it was.
Early 46.
I know we come out on point leverage, you know.
Sure.
I crossed the equator on my 16th birthday.
Did you?
Yeah. Sure did.
So you went into the service
early.
Yeah. Did you sort of fudge about your age, or?
Yeah.
I figured you did.
Yeah, my brother. I lost my oldest brother over in France in World War II. He signed my papers for me with a notary public seal on them. And we went to a notary public. He signed them because he knew I was wanting to go anyway. At that time, there was 3 of my brothers in already. So I just felt cheated, I reckon.
Yeah.
Didn't have no better sense.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed my stay in there. As far as, at least, the music kept me out of a lot of trouble, I'll tell you that.
I bet so.
Yeah.
Did you see any action while you were in there as far as while you were serving?
I'll tell you what. I saw very little.
Very little? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just so happened that way. A Japanese plane, they come in, you know, they was a squad of them come in this bay there in Hollandia.
Yeah.
And I saw a guy there cover himself up in signal flags. Now, you know how men will panic when they start strafing?
Yeah.
From the planes. And people laughed at him after it was all over. They missed him, see? He's hiding under the signal flags off the ship he was on there. And they was paging him, and nobody had seen him or nothing, but he was scared, and he got under those flags, like those flags had turned those bullets, you know.
Yeah.
And that's one of the strongest points I've seen, but I did see that was all action I even saw.
Sure. Well, when you came back home, how did you wind up going, you obviously you were considered a professional performer in the military, but how did you make the transition when you got back to civilian life? Did you?
Oh, well, you know, while I was over there, the first time I ever heard people like Stephen Tully, man, my hair stood straight up.
He's some kind of fiddler, isn't he?
Yeah, and there was, and Bob Wills, let me tell you something. I eat that stuff up, buddy. It was, I never played a lot of Bob's music, you know, but it was so listenable.
What did you think of what Spade Cooley was doing back then with the three fiddles?
Let me tell you something. There was another good outfit, son.
To me, and when I was probably about 12 years old the first time I heard the recordings that he did, and I know they were orchestrated. I know they had people writing those routine and harmonies, but the talent, and I don't know who the three fiddlers were, but the talent of those individuals, to me, were amazing. What they were doing on those recordings, it was just something else. And it's unfortunate what happened in Spade's life, that the music wasn't sort of got overshadowed. But in the event, that was some wonderful music.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, I used to listen to a lot of different music, and I heard a lot of it when I went to the military. I mean, for the first time, like take these jazz fiddlers and things. This black man, I can't even remember his name now, but they play records on board ship, and I forget what his name was, but he played his part and hum a part as he played. And man, I'll tell you what, he'd play two strings and hum the third part, and you couldn't tell much difference in it, but you hear him grunt once in a while. I've got a recording here of him in my, if I could find it, I brought it home with me. Now, I got some of that Hot Club of France, you know, guitar.
Right.
I never undertook to play that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is, it was good listening to me, and I did learn some licks from a lot of that.
Sure. So you think, really, when you talk about fiddlers themselves, do you feel more of the work is in the bow than the fingering?
Absolutely not. It takes both.
Okay. It takes both to work together.
Yes, sir. And I never wanted my fiddle to sound like nobody else's fiddle. Once I got into wanting to play fiddle, you know.
Right.
I never had no idea that I'd ever playing professional fiddle or anything like that, but once I got into it, I didn't want to sound like anybody else's fiddle.
Right.
I learned a lot of licks from a lot of people, but I didn't apply them the same way in the same music. You know, I didn't copy their music, stuff like that.
Get right down to it, there's only so many notes.
That's right.
And everybody's going to take them and do what they feel like doing with them. And
Yeah.
now let me go back just a second and get a couple of bits of information. You mentioned your father. What's your father's name?
Thaddeus Earl Baker.
Thaddeus? Like
Thaddeus.
Thadius?
It's Thaddeus.
Ddeus.
Yeah.
Earl, E-A-R-E?
Yeah.
Baker, okay. And where did you grow up? What town?
I grew up in, I was born in Jenkins, Kentucky.
Jenkins, Kentucky.
Lester County, yeah.
Okay. Is that where you would go out, where you use your dad's fiddle or in Jenkins up there on the roof, or was that a different town or different place?
Well, at the time I was doing that, I was real small, and we lived in about 10 miles out of Jenkins in a place called Bold, B-O-L-D, Camp, C-A-M-P, Virginia.
Bold Camp, Virginia.
Yeah, that was Wise County, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad, he went over there, and his parents and everybody was there, see.
I see.
Following his return from the South Pacific and his naval service during World War II, Kenny Baker married Audrey Sizemore in Clintwood, Virginia in November of 1946. The couple settled in Jenkins, Kentucky, where Kenny returned to the coal mines for work. They would have 2 children in the late 1940s, Kenneth Baker Jr. and Johnny Lee Baker. They lived in Jenkins other than a short period of time in 1957 when Kenny and his family moved to a house on Bill Monroe's farm while he was touring with Bill Monroe. They returned to Jenkins, where Kenny lived until 1968 when he moved to Cottontown, Tennessee.
When you came back from the war, you went into and did coal mining. Were there some other civilian jobs that you had as well before you really started fiddling, getting out and fiddling?
No, sir. That's
Just
coal
coal mining?
mining's the only different job I ever had.
And where did you do that? What part of the country?
I done it. I worked in Lester County, Kentucky, right out of Jenkins, and I did some work for Piston Fuel Coal Company in near Grundy, Virginia.
What was the name of that company again, Kenny? Near Grundy? I didn't catch.
Grundy?
Yeah, what was the name of that company? Pittston.
Clentsville.
Clentsville. Okay.
There's a big coal company over there
Okay. And so you stuck with that till when did you really step out and start doing fiddling as a profession or trying to earn a living?
Well, in the 50s, I worked with Don Gibson at WNOX in Knoxville.
Okay.
I was there about 4 or 5 years with Don. About 5 years, I guess it was. And that's where I met Bill.
Is it?
And Bill told me, he said, if you ever get dissatisfied working down here, he said, you come to Nashville. Don't call me, just come on. Now, that's the very words he told me, and at that time, I believe he had Gordon Terry playing fiddle with him, and, let's see. And Joe Stewart comes in there somewhere or another, you know. Joe was a fine guitar player.
Oh, I thought the world of Joe. I thought he was a nice man and just a talent. whatever instrument you put in his
That's
hand,
right.
he could do something with
He
it.
played not bad fiddle.
Yeah, he did. He did a pretty good job on fiddle too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was with him, and Gordon Terry was with him. So what year did you come to work? Decide that you was going to head down that way?
Well, I left. I'll tell you what. I came to Bill. It's around 54, 55, something like that.
54, 55.
And Bobby Hicks now. But there's another good fiddle player.
Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah. And Bobby was in the Army at that time when that's my second trip working with Bill. You know, I'd go down there and work a month or so and go back to the mines.
Would you?
Yeah. And
was money slow for the on the road? Is that what it was?
Yeah. And so I met Bobby. Bill called me and he told me he was going to do some recording. He wanted me to help him record. So I went to my superintendent at the mines. I was still employed at the mines.
Yeah.
I explained to him. He said, hell, said, go to every coal company had their own doctors, you know.
Uh-huh.
He said, just go up and tell Doc Perry that you want to be off a few days. So I went to the doctor and he gave me a slip. He sent that down to the superintendent, or set a record of it, you know. And I believe I was going about, I believe it's, I got off for 30 days to do that. And Hicks come in, he was on furlough from the military. And Bill was, that's when we did Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scotland and Panhandle country. Bobby and me did that.
Okay.
I can't remember the songs we did on that, but it come out pretty decent, I thought.
Oh yeah, I still, you know, that was, both of those were two that I really learned a lot from when I started learning and was listening to what y'all recorded.
Yeah.
I used to play that Scotland number quite a bit.
Yeah, that was a pretty number the way Bill done it.
Yeah.
You know, he was a writer now. I'm going to tell you that.
And you know, the one thing, you know, I know you were with him for a long time. I know you went off and on, and then you stuck with him for, what was it, about 22 years solid? Is that what?
No, not altogether. I was in and out with Bill for like almost 25 years, really.
Yeah.
But let's see. I think it's 23 years is what it was.
23 years. Okay.
Yeah. And that was longer, twice as long as anybody ever worked with Bill.
Well, that's what I was fixing to ask you. You know, I know, you know, Bill had such a consistency with what he was always coming up with tunes. And I know that was something that he was constantly doing. As the fiddler and the person that he probably leaned upon a great deal, was that something that worked well for you, or did it get on your nerves that every week he was wanting you to learn a new tune?
No, I enjoyed working with Bill.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
We always got along good, you know.
Well, would you mind for me going over when you quit? Because I've heard that story from so many different people through the years. I'd just like to know for myself, because, you know, had you not left, I would have never had the opportunity to play with Bill. So
I'll tell you exactly what happened.
Okay.
We were going to Japan, But you made that trip, didn't you?
Actually, no. It was too late for me to get to go. I came in. I met them in Washington when they came in. It was too late for me to get my paperwork in order. Yeah. So I met them when they came back in, and Tater, I think, did the fiddling while they were over there.
Well, anyway, 3 weeks before we would leave, I went to Bill's office. And I told him my brother, that was my oldest brother living, see? And he was in a bad way. And they was expecting him to die, you know. I went to Bill and I told him, I said, now Bill, this Japan trip, if you'll give me an itinerary, I'll tell you right now, I'll make the trip. But if you don't give me an itinerary, which is something he'd never do for some cause, I don't know what it was. So he just looked at me. So I come across with it again. And he looked. He never said, well, we'll see, or nothing. Well, it kind of got on me a little bit, you know. And I looked at him, and I got up to leave. And I said, now, Bill, I won't be going to Japan with you if I don't get the itinerary. And I worked the last day in Jimson, Alabama. I was down there, but unknown to Bill, I had a car sitting there waiting on me, bud.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I went down, and I played the first show, and they was going to pull out, driving to California to make a Japan trip, see? And they put him on early for his second show, and we hit the stage. And my itinerary had not been mentioned to me. So I'd already made up my mind if I didn't get it during this second show, I was just going to go and leave Bill there. I didn't care. I had transportation waiting on me. So we got on stage, and we done some opening number. I can't remember what it was. We didn't do that old theme we used to do. And the people kept hollering, wanting to hear Jerusalem Ridge. Bill, he stepped up to the mic. He said, well, I'm sure Kenny wants to play Jerusalem Ridge for you good folks. Don't you, Kenny? I was mad as hell, I'll tell you the truth. I don't mean to cuss, but
Sure.
I helped my fiddle out to the audience. And right over the mic, I said, I don't care a damn thing about it, and turned around and walked off stage. They brought me an itinerary 3 times, and the last time they brought it to me, I said, by God, you take it back to him. I don't need it, I've quit. And that was the last I seen them until they got back.
Oh, okay. So after you walked off stage, then he had somebody bring you an itinerary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he brought the itinerary to me 3 times.
Did he bring it, or did somebody else?
No, he sent Wayne Lewis with
Oh,
it.
he sent Wayne Lewis. Okay.
Yeah. And the last time Wayne brought it to me, I told him, I said, now you take that back to him. I don't want to see you that damn thing. I don't mean to cuss.
Oh, I know how frustrating it can be. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the only run-in that Bill and I ever had. I didn't call it a run-in myself. I knew what I was going to do. And Bill just couldn't see why I'd want to do that.
Right. And then, of course, after that, you started working with Josh.
Yeah.
And y'all started going out, and y'all continued to do that ever since. When both of your health allowed. You also did a short thing with the Masters, which was Eddie Edcock and
Oh, yeah.
Jesse and let's see, who else was with that? It was you and Eddie and Jesse and was it Martha? Was Martha on that? Or it was Eddie's wife?
Oh yeah, she was helped us with part of
But
that.
there was someone else in that foursome, wasn't there?
Is Josh?
Oh, Josh was in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's you and Josh and Eddie and Jesse. That's
Yeah.
who it was, yeah. And y'all had some great success with that. I mean, you got some Grammy nominations, if I recall correctly, and you played some really highbrow kind of places in New York and different places around the country, some of the symphony type
Oh yeah,
performances.
we played some big deals out there.
Well, of all the things that you've gotten to do in your life, what do you think is have you enjoyed the most? What would you pinpoint as saying this was, for me, was my greatest experience?
Well, I guess teaming up with Josh, I've had more. It built up my confidence a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Josh and me, after all the years, we on our 23rd year right now. And we've never had a hard word.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had boys working with us all the time. Never had no group, that couldn't get along.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
To tell you the truth, Josh is the best man I've ever worked with.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was, he may have told you, but Josh was my first professional job. I worked doing a sideman for him in Jekyll Island. That was as far as outside of having my own group.
Yeah.
He was, and so I think a lot of Josh. And
everybody likes Josh.
Yeah. If you were to pick one of the songs that you did in your career, that whether it's one you wrote or one that Bill wrote, or what would it be? Which would be the one you would say, well, this is the one I'm happiest with?
Well, I'll tell you what. I guess it'd be hard to say.
It would? Okay.
But I was trying to think of the title of this number. But financially, money-wise, I was trying to think of the name of that number. I wrote a thing called Frida.
Frida?
Yeah, this, there was a jazz group called Yellow Jackets. They recorded that number. And the first year that number come out, I think royalties amounted to about $4,000 off of that number.
My goodness. That's good. That's good for a fiddle tune.
Yeah. They had 50 pieces on that thing. I've still got that tape here somewhere.
Okay.
But it had to play halfway through before I recognized the number.
Before you recognize what you wrote.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I think as a writer, that's one of the greatest things is when somebody else likes what you've done well enough to record it, and you get to hear something else. Of course, it's nice to get the money too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's those checks help.
I'll tell you another number that that I like is that tune called McClanahan Trio.
McClanahan Trio.
Yeah, I wrote that. I mean, financially, it didn't make no big marks, but if I was picking out numbers, and another one was Bluegrass in the Backwoods.
Bluegrass in the Backwoods, okay.
You'd be surprised at the people that recorded that.
Huh, yeah. Is that one on the Bluegrass in the Backwoods, is that one from your more recent albums, or is that...
Oh, I recorded it several years back.
Did you? Okay.
And but I'll tell you what, it's made me a lot of money.
That's good.
I say a lot.
Yeah.
it's paid off.
Kenny, I've kept you a lot longer than I told you I would, but I certainly enjoyed spending this time with you.
Well, we do have to knock it off here pretty quick.
Yeah, I do appreciate it because you and I haven't had a chance to visit in many years.
That's right. We've never had a chance to really sit down and talk, have we?
No, not really.
Where I remember you from is down Florida, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, we visited. I used to come up and play with y'all at Dahlonega. When y'all come in at Dahlonega, and I'd come on, and Bill would bring me on stage to do a number.
Yeah.
And then you and I would cross paths when I'd come up into Nashville, and I'd go to, of course, Florida. We did cross paths like at Jemison and Jekyll Island, and down in Florida occasionally.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm
you're right.
talking about, we didn't have a chance to just sit down and reminisce, did we?
Not really, no. Not like, it was always just in passing, how are you today, what do you think about this, and maybe some conversation about what was going on at that time, not really a lot. But I feel because you played such a great role musically in my coming up. Yeah, I used to sit by your records and just, I felt like I knew you through your music, even though we never had the opportunity to get to know each other on a talking level. Because I can't tell you how many times I've taken that needle and put it back, moved it back to say, well, how did he do that? Slow that down to 16 so you could try to get that off that record. It didn't do me much good. I mean, I can't say that I've ever really been able to get up to your level of playing, but you've always given me something to aspire to, and that's meant a lot to me.
I appreciate that, but I never looked on my playing as being better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I played the best I could, and that's the effort I put in it,
I remember one thing stands out in my mind. We ran across each other at Home Place Studios one time. I don't remember what you were doing. I don't remember what I was doing. It's like I was coming in, you was going out, and you looked up and said, you seem to be just about everywhere I am these days. That sticks in my mind. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because we just kept running into each other quite often at that time. But thank you for your time. I'll get all this together, and I'll probably have a column come up in the next couple of weeks, and I'll send some copies to you. Thank you again, and I hope you continue to get to feeling better. I know that's tough.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm feeling much better now.
Mm-hmm. You got any plans to do any more recording anytime soon? Or?
Well, I was supposed to record a project here about a month and a half ago, and it just came up out company I've been recording some for. They wanted to do it just right off the bat, and I told him, I said, well, I've been working on some stuff, and I had been at that time, see.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, now I've got to get enough recorded. I've done recorded so many re-recorded, numbers that I've done in the past for county records and stuff. I said, I've got some new material I want to lay down.
Right.
And I'm busy putting it together. So it's been 2 or 3 months, but after I had the sick spell, see, I haven't had my fiddle out of the case.
Kenny passed away 5 years after we did this interview on July the 8th, 2011 in Nashville, Tennessee. He was laid to rest at Jenkins Payne Gap Cemetery in Payne Gap, Kentucky. Friends, thanks for watching Randall Frank's Bluegrass Legends with Kenny Baker. It's because of Bill Monroe and Kenny Baker that I got to wear this suit and hat, play this fiddle, performing across the United States. Some great memories. Now, if you enjoyed the interview, you can get a version of it in my Encouragers book series. There's 3 volumes, And Kenny is featured in A Guiding Hand, which is volume 3. You can find that at randallfranks.com/store and get your copy today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.